I'm interested to know more about the process of realizing that you had a disconnected, differences in the interpretation. Because we, evolutionary speaking, we are machines that, even when we're not thinking about it, we're creating models of the world around us and to navigate complexity. So we build abstractions. We create essentially mental models for how this bottle of water works. I know that there's something called gravity. Even if I don't know the equation for it, I know how water behaves. I don't have to question it, and go like, is this water? Is this a liquid? Is there gravity? Yeah, we have intuitions for this stuff, and most of the time they run undetected. They're part of our subconscious. They just help us navigate the work and do less and achieve more with less. So how does it work when a team realizes, hey, we actually, what we thought was obvious is not obvious, and now we need to actually ask trivial questions because they're not trivial, and get the buy-in from the business to do that, because obviously imagine it's a long and intensive process.
Yeah, it's interesting. Okay, so I'll pick an example, which is new customer. What's a new customer? When we went to implement a new customer metric into the data warehouse, which, as you can appreciate, is actually it's not new customer, it's a customer. Like, how many customers do we have right now, and how many, of course, customers joined us today? The way that eventuated is we went in to do it, and then the engineer tasked with implementing it went, well, hang on, is a new customer. There were a bunch of edge cases. Engineers constantly, I used to be an engineer and I did this to other people, constantly annoying everyone with edge case questions. Like, come on, who cares? Just do it. But it's like, is a customer and a customer's join date, is that the date that they basically added to the customer table in the database? Or is it the date of their first order?
Right? Or the day of the third order.
And then we already went through what's an order, right? So, what if the first order was going to But, and I'm simplifying this for the sake of the discussion as well, but it's like...
There's a billion ways to get it wrong.
It's like, oh, really? You don't know what a customer is? Okay. But, that distinction is there. And so, okay, well, who do we ask? Okay, I don't know. Ask, these people, largely marketing and commercial were the sort of go-tos. The question was asked me, basically we got back different and quite passionate responses. And if I can, if you boil it down a little bit, marketing's perspective was a customer is a customer if they've joined. If they've come on with an intention to buy and they've tried to, then they're a customer. Now, if we had to cancel their order because we don't have stock or whatever, they're still a customer, right? That was marketing's perspective, whereas commercial's perspective was, well, no, they have to be revenue generating. And also we've got this existing reports that use that implicit definition that no one ever kind of agreed to across the entire business. So you're wrecking everything if we go that way. From the data side, the first thing we try and do is mediate and kind of, we just want an answer, right? But it was like, whoa, I much prefer marketing's definition because that doesn't change in the future, right? So if someone places an order today and it's cancelled tomorrow,
well,
then we have to. Then the summary table we generated the night before is out of date, is wrong, right? Because we actually lost a customer from yesterday today. So that's horrible from a database management perspective, right? So that was my interest. But okay, so then literally there was a six week process of trying to get the definition right, and as I say, sort of mediating, finding common ground. And by the end of it, there just wasn't. It was just different perspectives. So what this is where we ended up. We go, well, okay, who owns that definition? And we had an all-in meeting in the executive team, and people agreed to it. And we really, really good attitude around that. And then we agreed to it, and we got the definition. But I mean, in practice, what actually happened is we were stuck. We couldn't progress this initiative for, well, I say 6 weeks. It was 6 weeks, but then it was another delay while we got the meeting organised and such. And I can't recall exactly what it was, but essentially it killed a project. Like, there was a small mini project that was going on that required this and we just couldn't do it because we couldn't get the definition of it. So it wasn't just some reporting thing. It ended up killing off
blocking you
an initiative of the business. So we want to avoid that, and hence we're going through this process now.
If you were to give an advice to a CEO of a startup,
Yeah.
what would you say are the top three things that they should really keep in mind and have very clear in their heads when it comes to data and analytics?
Yeah. It depends on the startup, right? It depends on the nature of the business and such. If they were in my world, which is retail, e-com, particularly become a data-driven, data native company, not a digital native company. Right. So this is something I'm becoming more and more aware of. All right. So 25 years ago, started the digital native companies, and we have relentlessly risen and taken the business of bricks and mortar native businesses. Very few of them have made the transition. Very few of them have adapted. There's still obviously there's still a need for bricks and mortar businesses. I don't think they're going away anytime soon, but by being digital native, by putting engineering processes, efficiencies like that at the heart of the business, we've fueled this relentless growth. It's becoming commoditized, I would say. So don't confuse being digital native, as most startups are, with being data native. If I was to start a new business today, I'd be data native from the very beginning, right? Put the database at the center of your organization, put the data at the center of your organization, not the engineering. Like, the engineering is incredibly important. I would never dismiss it. But start by using data. The other one I'd say is always go central. Centralize your database, but find ways, and they evolve in the path of a business, right? Like, there used to be 2 of us, then there were 10, 30, 100, and now there's many, many hundreds of 500, 600, I think was the last number I heard, employees of Pet Circle. Find ways to disseminate and genuinely empower everyone in the organization to make use of data in a way that's appropriate for them. Okay, so that just starts by having a BI tool or a SQL tool. If you cash constrained when you start a business, BI tools aren't always cheap. But the lesson I've learned is get the definitions clear. So do look at the transformations as much as you can. That's easy advice to give. Like, I remember back at the beginnings of a startup, you didn't have a lot of spare time, but if you can do those transformations to create an order table, a customer table, a product table, or whatever's relevant to your business, and always work off that and then update the definitions underlying it, it's going to make the business more cohesive, especially as it goes through that, let's say, 30 plus employee scale.
I just loved the difference you made between being digital and data driven and data informed or data centric. Let's call it centric, because it really speaks to what the business is all about. We are here to learn and to adapt to the changes that happen inside and outside the organization, and react to those changes. Ideally, first level react, but we want to be a lot more strategic, ideally, and not just react, but plan ahead and anticipate things.
I was guilty of it, but I conflated engineering and data for so long, and they're just such different things. And you talk about strategic. I think I said this to you the other day. Like, everyone wants to be strategic. Data is the path that can make everyone strategic, because you talk to us about your goals. That's strategy. That's how a CEO talks, right? They talk about goals. You come to us and you talk about the rules you want to apply. That's not what the CEO says, right? You're not being strategic. And that's an engineering type of approach. I want you to apply this if statement and that while loop and so forth. Data takes that out of your hands. You talk to us about goals, and we'll set up the data structures so that they allow the machine to interpret that correctly and make the right decisions. And we have to get comfortable with taking ourselves out of that process, both as humans, because the computers can do it better in so many different use cases now. Yeah,
it's funny how ego creeps in from every angle, no matter how you look at it. The engineering team, they pride themselves for their technical abilities. They want to be, it's a tribe. There's a certain culture within it. There's a certain lingo, and people from the outside don't really understand. Sometimes even other engineers can't understand. A subset of engineers. I mean, it happened to me. Jumping on some Slack channels and you're like, "What the hell's going on here?" You have custom emojis, you have custom acronyms for things that you only know, what really they mean. So there are so many invisible barriers within each team. It's true for engineering. It's true for any team. But when you look at developing that culture, as you said, in the organization where people feel empowered to use the asset and they treat it as an asset. They know that there are incentives in place so that if you find an anomaly or an unconformity or a gap or a mismatch, you should report it and you should know how to do it and you should be rewarded for that. You should feel, that's part of your job. It's not that because you're pausing what you're doing and spending, half an hour, 15 minutes to submit a ticket or log the problem. It's not that you're not doing your job. If anything, you are doing your job. But not only that, you're making sure that tomorrow's version of yourself and everybody else that will need that piece of data will find something that's usable, that's fit for purpose, as opposed to nobody knowing what's going on. So there is a bit of a change in perspective and mentality.
Yes,
that we need to do to get around that. What would you suggest to, I know this is hard because we left uni a bunch of years ago and even harder for you, but would you suggest to someone that is clearly passionate about data information, they want to develop a career, and maybe they did a degree in data science and they know the maths, what are the skills that these people are clearly lacking and that prevent them from having an impact in the business and being hired?
It's like with everything. It's a classic one with engineering, but it goes across the board. It's just a tool. It's just a tool. It's a way of approaching a problem. You have to immerse yourself in the domain to be taken seriously by the rest of the business, if you like. And I would never say that the business is sales and marketing and such, and not the business is engineers and data, equal part of the business. But you have to be practical about it. You have to be prepared to go out to the warehouse. You have to, if you're working on a supply chain issue, to go and work with the delivery drivers. If it's another sort of supply chain issue, to really get your head around digital marketing, non-digital marketing and such. If you're working in the marketing team, you can't just isolate yourself and focus entirely on the data and the techniques. If you're having a problem, the solution isn't doubling down on trying, a different type of database or a random forest rather than a decision tree approach or something like that. It's to go and talk, immerse yourself in the business, spend the time. It's worth it. It's actually fun if you get over that sort of hurdle to really learn about the domain that you're analyzing.